Silent Hill 4: The Room stands out as one of the most unique entries in the Silent Hill series. It mixes the traditional Silent Hill third-person exploration with first-person claustrophobic sections in the iconic apartment. Originally released in 2004 for the PlayStation 2, PC, and Xbox, it eventually became a cult classic, inspiring many survival horror games, including the famous PT demo for the Silent Hill game that never happened. Today, you have multiple ways to experience this unsettling classic on PC. You can emulate the original PS2 version using PCSX2, run the Xbox version on Xemu, or opt for the updated PC version available on GOG.com. With so many options on the table, which one offers the best experience on PC? In this video, we're gonna dive into each version and find out. Let's start by looking at the PlayStation 2 version of Silent Hill 4: The Room, emulated on PCSX2. Released in 2004 alongside the Xbox and PC versions, this is the original iteration of the game that many fans first experienced. On the PS2, the game runs at a resolution of 640 by 448 at 30 FPS and was designed for a 4:3 aspect ratio. This means that unless you're playing on an old CRT or using a patch, the image will appear pillar-boxed on modern displays. One quirk of this version on PCSX2 is a visual glitch where certain textures flicker when the camera moves, breaking the immersion somewhat. However, PCSX2 offers a few ways to enhance the experience. You can play it at the native resolution, which keeps that nostalgic look intact, or you can increase the rendering resolution to high resolutions like 4K. When you do this, the dynamic shadows become a bit sharper, but they still look perfectly fine and maintain the game's eerie atmosphere. That being said, not everything scales perfectly. Certain scenes with post-processing effects, like when looking through the peephole in Henry's apartment door, don't get upscaled, leading to a noticeable drop in image quality during those moments.
Hope my luck changes before the party.
There's also a widescreen patch that lets you play the game in 16:9, but it does come with some compromises. The UI gets stretched, and occasionally you'll see areas of the game world that weren't meant to be visible, which can break the intended framing of some scenes. If you're feeling adventurous, there's a 60 FPS hack for this version, but it's not really recommended. While it does technically increase the frame rate, it also breaks several aspects of the game, causing animations to play at double speed and cutscenes to fail to play. One of the best enhancements for this version is the HD texture pack by Ice Bullet, which significantly improves the quality of the in-game textures. When paired with a high rendering resolution, it makes the game look remarkably sharp, breathing new life into the haunting visuals. All in all, emulating the PS2 version on PCSX2 offers a faithful yet flexible experience that lets you relive Silent Hill 4: The Room with various modern improvements. However, some quirks and limitations remain, keeping it from being a flawless experience. Next up is the Xbox version of Silent Hill 4: The Room, running on the Xemu emulator. This version was released in 2004 alongside the PS2 and PC versions, and on Xbox, it runs at a resolution of 640 by 480 at 30 FPS, supporting only the 4:3 aspect ratio. The texture quality is virtually identical to the PS2 version, so no improvements there. However, there are some noticeable differences. Certain post-processing effects, like the noise and film damage, appear less intense than on the PS2, slightly altering the overall visual tone. Additionally, the depth of field effect is a bit different from the PS2 version. It's not necessarily better or worse, just a curious variation on how the effect is drawn. One advantage of using Xemu is that it doesn't suffer from the texture flicker glitch present on PCSX2, resulting in a more stable visual experience. However, unlike PCSX2, Xemu's resolution increasing feature doesn't work with Silent Hill 4, meaning it always runs at 640 by 480. So you can't upscale the game to higher resolutions like 4K. There's also no support for widescreen patches, 60 FPS hacks, or texture mods, making it a more limited experience when it comes to modern enhancements. The game's aspect ratio on Xemu is slightly off, appearing a bit wider than it should. It's not a massive issue, but it does give the image a slightly stretched look. More problematic, however, are the FMV cutscenes. They play at the wrong speed, causing the audio to go out of sync and even cut off at various moments. Which can be quite distracting. To get the visuals to look right, you'll need to increase the contrast setting to 8, otherwise the game appears noticeably darker compared to the PS2 version. In short, while the Xbox version on Xemu offers a mostly stable experience without texture glitches, it's held back by a lack of upscaling options, incorrect aspect ratio, and FMV issues. It's an interesting version to check out for historical curiosity, but it's not the ideal way to play Silent Hill 4 on modern hardware. Finally, let's talk about the PC version of Silent Hill 4 The Room, which is available on GOG.com. This version was released on GOG in 2020, but it's essentially the same as the original PC version that came out in 2004 alongside the PS2 and Xbox versions. The main differences are some bug fixes and added support for modern systems, making it easier to get up and running on contemporary hardware. Interestingly, this PC version appears to be a port of the Xbox version. You can tell because of certain similarities, like the way the depth of field effect is rendered, and how the noise and film damage effects are less intensive compared to the PS2 version. Just like the console versions, it's limited to 30 FPS. One of the big advantages of this version is its support for modern high resolutions, including 4K, but you can also play in low resolutions like 640 by 480 with integer scaling without the hassle of changing your desktop resolution like with older PC games. It also supports widescreen resolutions, but there's a catch. Anything that isn't 3D rendered, like menus, UI, and FMV cutscenes, will be stretched, which is not ideal. However, it doesn't have the texture flickering glitch that's present on PCSX2, so that's a plus. On the downside, the texture quality is actually a little worse than on console versions, and the dynamic shadows are noticeably darker than on PS2 and Xbox. When running at high resolutions, the dynamic shadows appear sharper, much like they do on PCSX2, which is not a big issue. There's also a mod that attempts to correct the aspect ratio of the UIs and menus when playing in widescreen, but it's not perfect. It leaves gaps on the sides of the UI textures and disables a few major graphical effects, so it's not really recommended. There's also a mod that unlocks the frame rate up to 300 FPS. But, just like the 60 FPS hack on PCSX2, it breaks a lot of gameplay elements and causes cutscenes to play at a much slower speed, making it more of a novelty than a practical option. When it comes to texture mods, I haven't found any that are worth recommending, but there are a couple of other useful mods. One is a haunting restoration mod that restores a couple of hauntings that happened later in the game, which were only present in the PS2 version. There's also an FMV aspect ratio correction mod that's worth using if you're playing in widescreen. Links to both mods are in the description. To get the best experience, you'll need to adjust a couple of settings. Set the gamma levels to 1.0, otherwise the game looks too bright. Additionally, change the sound setting to Dolby Digital to make the stereo sound work correctly. Overall, the GOG version of Silent Hill 4 The Room is the most convenient way to play on modern systems, but it has its share of quirks. It doesn't have the visual glitches found on PCSX2, but the slightly worse texture quality, lack of a proper texture mod, and issues with widescreen support keep it from being a definitive version. Still, if you're looking for a hassle-free experience, this is a solid option. So, which version of Silent Hill 4 The Room is the best way to play today? Well, there's no clear-cut answer. Each version has its own pros and cons. PCSX2 and the GOG PC version both offer great experiences, but in different ways, while the Xbox version running on Xemu is more of a novelty than a serious option due to its limitations. Overall, the GOG PC version seems to be the best option. It's the most convenient to set up on modern systems and avoids the visual glitches found when using PCSX2. It also supports modern resolutions, and with a couple of mods, you can fix some minor issues. However, the slightly worse texture quality and the stretched UI and widescreen might be off-putting to some players. Personally, my preferred way to play would be the GOG version running at 640 by 480 with integer scaling. This way I wouldn't have to worry about any of the widescreen related issues, and the lower resolution helps hide the texture imperfections. It preserves the nostalgic retro look while still being easy to run on modern hardware. But if high resolution is a priority, then PCSX2 might be the better choice. Thanks to its ability to upscale to 4K and the excellent HD texture pack by Ice Bullet, the game can look fantastic. Just be prepared to deal with the texture flickering glitch and some sections where the resolution doesn't upscale correctly. In the end, it all depends on what you prefer: authenticity, convenience, or visual quality. No matter which version you choose, Silent Hill 4 The Room remains a unique and haunting entry in the series. and definitely worth experiencing. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe for more. And consider supporting me on Patreon if you'd like to help me make more videos like this. I also have videos on Silent Hill 2 and 3, so don't forget to check those out too. If you want to get in touch with me, you can follow me on X. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.
Where did I put that damn broom? Oh, there it is.